Hello and welcome to 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio. This is our very special, in-depth, and accurate Atlanta Braves recap. And we couldn't do this without bringing in the man himself, the guy who knows more about the Atlanta Braves than I know about digital media, and that is our host, Logan Landers. How's it going, Mr. Landers?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good, Jeremiah. It's a crisp Monday morning here, second day of November, so I'm ready, man. I'm ready to talk some sports.
Can you believe we're already into November?
I
That's
know.
crazy.
I know. This year's been like a whirlwind, but we're almost there.
Absolutely. I'll tell you one thing before we get started. The time change coming the night of Halloween into the next night, that really threw me off this year.
Yeah.
I don't remember it being like that in the past. I think I always feel like it was way later or way earlier in the year, but it definitely snuck up on me this year.
Yeah, I always thought it was kind of like mid-November or something. I never thought it was like the last. I would never thought it would have been Halloween leading into the first day of November. But it's definitely nice to get that hour back of sleep that we've been missing for so long. So I slept great that first night. Man, I woke up at like probably 7 o'clock. I'm like, man, why do I feel refreshed, rejuvenated? But I'm like, man, it's that different hours, that 1 hour difference that really makes a heck of a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely makes all that difference. Well, let's get into it. And Mr. Logan Landers, I need you to recap the Braves for me and just tell me all of the greatness and the heartache that came with this season. And let's do it with our world famous slide deck.
Well, like you said, Jeremiah, it can't be a Braves recap if it's not without a little bit of heartbreak, of course. They lost to the Dodgers in the NLCS this past couple weeks ago. And the Dodgers went on to win the World Series. So at least you can say, we lost to the world champs. So that does suck, but all in all, let's talk about the regular season, how they did, what I liked coming out of them, and how they're going to fare going into the next season. Yes. So as we all know, they only played those 60 games due to the COVID-shortened season, but they did go 35-25, which led them to be first place in the National League East, winning their division. So all in all, pretty good. Going into the season, we did a couple of player profiles on them. Some of their big free agent signings back in, it feels like years and years ago, but it was only around March when we were doing that. I talked about how they signed Cole Hamels and how I thought he was going to help out their team, but that didn't really work out for them. I think he pitched in one or maybe two games, and just old age kind of caught up to him, and that's how his season went. That was their kind of one of their free agent signings. They also got Marcelo Zuna, who we saw, who did a tremendous job for them this season. And only on that 1-year deal that really kind of helped them out. And he was really playing for that money, and I think he's definitely going to earn it. So he's 29 at the moment. He played in all 60 games, which is what you love to see out of any of your players. Had 77 hits, which led the team. 14 doubles, 18 RBIs, and 56 RBIs. So this guy was doing everything. 38 walks as well. So he was getting on base. He struck out 60 times, but when you're a big power bat like that, you're going to strike out a lot. That's just how it is. You're either going to hit home runs or you're going to strike out. That's just the way the game's played now, and that's just how it was for him. But also they had a lot of young pieces too. That's how everyone knows the Braves. They're very young, and they're very talented. There's also some players that kind of snuck up that you never heard of that did some tremendous jobs. I'm going to start on offense first because that's where you get all the ball rolling, and that's how you win games is when you got to score. So on offense, one of the best surprises this year was Travis d'Arnaud, the 31-year-old catcher, who not a lot of people had a lot of high expectations for coming into the season. Coming into the season, the Braves had a catching situation that was kind of up in the air. They had Tyler Flowers, who has not had the best run as a Brave, and they also have d'Arnaud, who's kind of been lacking for his whole career. But, man, he had a heck of a resurgence this year. He hit .321 on the year, 53 hits, and 9 home runs. So, very solid year out of a guy that you would have never thought would have batted above probably 250. So tremendous work from him. I was very happy to see just how he was and how just that good feel-good kind of story. We always love to see that in any kind of sport. It doesn't matter if it's football, baseball, basketball, or anything else we cover on the show. It's always good to see kind of the underdog who's been kind of slept on his whole career get that one shining moment, whether it's for a season or it's for a couple games. And d'Arnaud was able to do that for the whole season. Kind of fell off a little bit in the postseason, but for that 2020 regular season, man, it was very special. So they also have a lot of other young pieces as well. They had Freddie Freeman, who's their veteran at first base, who's looking like the MVP. They're going to announce all the finalists tonight, I believe. It is November 2nd. And that will be all the winners will be announced within the coming weeks. So I do think that Freeman will win the MVP. And here's why I think so. He had 73 hits, which led the team, which was second on the team. 23 doubles in a 60-game season, which is very impressive. 13 home runs and 53 RBIs and 45 walks as well, with only 37 strikeouts. So he was very consistent. And of course, how can we forget about that 341 batting average and the 462 on-base percentage, which lets you know that he is going to get on base regardless of how it's done. So I do think he will win the MVP. It would be nice to see an Atlanta Braves player win the MVP. It's been a while since we've seen that. And plus, everyone that's in Atlanta and watches the team knows that Freddie Freeman is just a nice guy. Everyone seems to love him and love his family and everything. And it'll be good for the Braves to, even though they didn't get the World Series, this will be a nice kind of a consolation prize for them. So besides Freeman winning the MVP, there's also a lot of other pieces. Ozzie Albies, he had a pretty solid season, hit 271. Dansby Swanson stepped up, hit 274. So all those guys did very good as well. Austin Riley is still developing. There's still a little bit of time there. Adam Duvall had a very nice season with 16 home runs, kind of like Darno, one of those guys that you never thought would kind of break out. But he had a very solid year as well. Also, Nick Markakis, the veteran, who didn't play in the beginning because of the COVID outbreak, but did decide to come back and played in 37 games. So very pretty solid from him. Hit 254. But there's always good for that veteran leadership that you see. Some of the other guys, you got Ronald Acuna did very good. He's only 22, and he hit 250. So not the best season out of him, but he did hit 14 home runs. So while it was the shortened season, I mean, this isn't going to be a drop-off for him at all. I expect him to come back next season, regardless of how many games are played, to have a very solid year. Johan Camargo as well, another young piece. He's 26, didn't have the best season as well. But like I said, it's hard this year with those guys because you didn't have as much time to get training and to get all your warm-ups and stuff like that. So that did kind of hurt them, I think, for some of the other pieces. But at least you had some other guys stepping up, which did help. So on the pitching side of things, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Braves, and then I'm going to talk about baseball, just MLB in general, and then we'll wrap it up. So talk about the Braves pitching. Coming into this year, you thought it was just going to be Mike Soroka and a bunch of other guys who hasn't really proved themselves. But as we saw early in the year, it was a completely different story. Soroka went out, had that knee, I think it was a knee or an ankle injury, and he was out for the majority of the year. So those young guys had to really come and step up, and boy, did they ever. And led them all the way to the NLCS against the Dodgers. Max Fried was tremendous. 26-year-old, went 7-0 with only a 2.25 ERA, started in 11 games, and had a very solid outing. Pitched 56 total innings, only gave up 14 to earn runs on the season. Very solid out of him. He proved to be that he could be an ace for us this year, and I'm very excited to see what he's going to do in the future. Also, Kyle Wright, the young 24-year-old. He didn't have as great of a season, but you could see that there are some glimpses there of a potentially very bright future. Had a 5.21 ERA, though, in a 38 innings pitched, but being only 24, he still got plenty of time to improve. Ian Anderson, who we saw had a tremendous postseason for Atlanta and late season rally, 22 years old, same age as me. He went 3-2, a 1.95 ERA. So he really kind of showed that this guy could potentially be a number one or a number two starter with plenty of room of growth. Like I said, being only 22, he's got a lot of life left in that arm, and he's going to be able to do it for a long time. Now for the bullpen, which has been kind of iffy, but they really kind of had a solid this whole season, honestly. Mark Melancon, who was the closer, had a 2.78 ERA with 11 saves on the year. Tyler Matzek had a pretty solid game, had a pretty solid season as well. 2.79 ERA, and a lot of people kind of forgot about him being signed, honestly, but it turned out to be a great pick, and it helped kind of anchor down the bullpen. Shane Green as well, who they got last year, had a 2.60 ERA. He's 31, so we'll be having him for a little bit more. And Luke Jackson, who it seems all the Atlanta fans either seem to love or hate, just kind of depends on the day. Did not have the best season, a 6.84 ERA. So a lot of people were thinking that Jackson might not be on the roster next year, or that he might be optioned down to one of the lower affiliates. But we'll have to see. AJ Mentor had a pretty solid season as well, a 0.83 ERA in just six games. So not the best. He didn't play that much, but overall, when he was in there for the 21 innings, he had a very good run. So there are a couple of bullpens, guys, I'm just going to talk about real quick that I thought were very impressive on the season. I'm just going to talk about Chris Martin, 19 games, 18 innings, had 1 ERA. Darren O'Day had 16 innings with one ERA as well. So those guys are doing very good. You always got to improve the bullpen. That's always going to be a factor. It doesn't matter what team you're on. It doesn't matter if you're on the Braves or if you're on the World Series Dodgers. You're going to have some bullpen pieces that are going to be, kind of weaker links. And that's just how it is. It's just how the game is. You're not going to have a full stack team. Baseball is not like basketball. You got a lot more positions to fill. And it's kind of like football. You have a lot of positions to fill. You're always going to have a kind of a weak link. And typically for baseball, it's either a catcher who can't hit, but for this case in the Braves with Darno, he was able to fix that narrative, or it's the bullpen where it's just going to be kind of iffy for some spots. But with the Braves, they do have a very bright future, especially with that young pitching, and they're pretty talented and pretty young core on the offensive side of the ball. They're looking very solid heading into this 2021 season. I know after that heartbreak loss against the Dodgers in the NLCS, it was rough. Trust me, I watched that game. It sucks, but if you're from Atlanta, I think you're used to the heartbreak by now. You hate to say it, but that's just how it is. And, overall, the Braves had a very solid season. I'm not hanging my head on that at all. I'm proud of them. They had a very good year, and they had a lot of expectations, and they delivered on it. I don't think a lot of people thought they were going to get to the NLCS, but they kind of exceeded expectations for me. And, next year, you want to either see them get there or to the World Series. So I think they could definitely get there. And I think that the Braves have a very solid future ahead of them, and I'm looking forward to it. Let's switch over to just baseball in general, because as we know, it's over. There's no more baseball left for this season. Off-season's coming. All the awards are going to be coming soon. So like I said, I have Freddie Freeman winning the MVP with his .341 batting average and 73 hits, which was very solid. I'm a big Freddie Freeman fan, so happy that he was able to have a very good year, 4th in the league in hits. So I see him getting the MVP. So some other guys that had a very solid season as well: Trey Turner, Marcell Ozuna, and Jose Abreu, who's looking like the AL MVP potentially. DJ LeMahieu with the Yankees had an absurd .364 batting average, which it's going to be hard to ever see that again. If we have another 60-game season like we did this year, it might happen, but you'll never see that in 162. That's pretty hard to do. And he didn't play the whole 60 games. He played in 50. But still, that batting average is absolutely insane. And that guy's always been an on-base machine. So leading the way in terms of some of the other stats in this category, for stolen bases, Alberto Mondesi for the Royals had 24. And that's just how it is. Stolen bases are kind of a slept-on type of deal now. You don't see that many guys kind of taking bases at will like you did back in the day. And that's just because with the analytical side of baseball, you're going to see a lot of guys not take that chance because you could give up another potential run by getting thrown out for moving a couple of feet over. So, like I said, the 24 led the league with that guy. So he did pretty good. The Royals were not the best team, but at least he had that. Leading the way with home runs, Luke Voit, who had 22, very solid player for the Yankees. And, he had a very good year. I enjoyed it very much, and I know I have a friend who a very big Luke Voit fan, so if he's watching today, I know he's happy I'm shouting him out. But yeah, so overall, I think that very good season for what happened with all the COVID stuff. They were able to get it done. A couple of scares in the beginning with a couple of guys getting tested, but they did kind of get everything wrapped up once they went into the playoffs. Because as you know, Jeremiah, they did kind of like a bubble feature.
That's right.
They played in only, I think, 2 or 3 stadiums, just kind of depending on how many guys were playing. So that did help tremendously. Like I said, in the beginning, it was shaky. There was a couple guys that did get tested positive, but they kind of weathered the storm, and they were able to get it fixed. So overall, just my entire impressions on this whole season, happy to see it happen. Let me just say that. I'm very happy that there was baseball being played this year, and that, especially for the Braves, because that's our hometown. That's where we're from. We're from Atlanta. We got to support our teams. And I'm, like I said, even though they didn't get to the World Series, I'm very happy with them. Jeremiah, what do you think of the Braves? Do you think that they had a very good season? And do you think they're going to be solid again next year?
It is again. It's the hometown team. We did have a few heartbreakers there towards the end, but honestly, they had a really solid season leading up to that. I think it was noteworthy. It was reminding me of something you were saying earlier. Is it really shows the difference in like the Ken Griffey Jr. era versus the Moneyball era of baseball. Because back in the day, have sports stars and doing things that sports stars do. When I was growing up, and you had the Ken Griffey Jr.'s type. That person was taking his own his own career into mind when he was stealing those bases.
Right.
He wanted to have the most bases stolen. He wanted to have a certain averages for himself. But in this more Moneyball era, the coaches are thinking of long-term averages and on base averages, and literally they're telling their people, even if they are good at it, they're telling them, you may slide and you may steal a base, but on average you're stealing the bases less than 50% of the time, which means that on average you're taking us down on a number of runs we could be scoring over an entire season. Yep. So that's a big difference, a huge, huge difference in the way that baseball used to be played in like the 80s and 90s versus like the 2000s, 2010s.
Yeah, especially nowadays, you're just seeing guys want to go up there and hit as many home runs as they can, which is great to watch. That's always what you want to see with baseball. Sure. But you see that the kind of analytical Moneyball side of things can work because, we saw the Tampa Bay Rays, who had a very minuscule payroll, get all the way to the World Series against the Dodgers, who were blowing them out of the water in terms of how much money they're being generated. So it's kind of a really cool contrast between those two teams, especially, which is why I was very excited for the World Series, because I think I saw where like one player for the Dodgers was making more than the entire Rays starting lineup of 9 players. So that just lets you know that money doesn't always buy you championships. You can get to the promised land almost with Tampa like they did, with a lot of young talent. It don't matter how much money they make or anything like that. And they're a small market too. Yeah. So that's just the good thing about baseball, is that anyone can have a great season and that there's always going to be some fun surprises.
Absolutely. I definitely will be ready for spring training. Hopefully that everything will be back to a normal pace there. And we'll get to go out and have, groups of people actually going out and watching the spring training as it really kicks in. And then back to full stadiums in the next season. Oh, yeah. That would be great.
That's always the hope. That's always the hope, man.
Absolutely. Well, you've been watching our very special baseball segment for the Atlanta Braves here on 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio. We bring you this segment to make sure you're fully informed on all the worlds of sports, because we care about sports in a general way beyond just football. And, of course, we're bringing the best host to bring in to talk about the Atlanta Braves, our guy, Logan Landers. I am the producer, Jeremiah Long. If there's anything that you would like to see on the show, including more baseball coverage, basketball coverage, even other sports that we don't cover, like curling, for example, then please let us know in the comments that that's what you like to see. And we'll make sure to bring in the best sports analysts, the best people to interview, and give you all game previews, more historic things on the different games, and lots of information here at 100 Yards of Football. And make sure you also go to our podcast. It's on Apple, it's on Spotify, it's on Stitcher. It's basically anywhere that you go to listen to your podcasts. And just look up 100 Yards of Football, and you will find us. So for the entire team here at 100 Yards of Football, I'm Jeremiah Long, and we'll see you a little bit later in the week. Bye now.